welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismember pop culture in all its forms. My name's Jess, and today we're going to talk about Daredevil. Oh, wait, not that Daredevil. Oh, no, this Daredevil, the comic and live-action superhero from Marvel Comics. This week, the new Daredevil show, Born Again, will be released on Disney+, so I thought leading up to that it would be a good time to discuss the character in some depth, dive into the history of the character and the franchise, and maybe speculate about what to expect in the new TV show. Well, first off, Daredevil is probably my favorite superhero of all time. Since I was a little kid, back in the 1980s. Yes, I'm that old. I've always been a fan. There's something about the gritty, street-level feel of the action and the grounded drama and the unique combination of abilities that Daredevil had kind of drew me in as a kid and has kept him relevant and important as a character to me into my adulthood. Daredevil first appeared in 1964 during the Silver Age of comics in his own original comic series titled Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. It was created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett with some additional assistance from Jack Kirby. The first series lasted from 1964 all the way to 1998. The first 10 years of the comic run established Daredevil's backstory, some of his notable villains, as well as some of his popular collaborations, including frequent matchups of Spider-Man and Black Widow, who he actually had a pretty long-standing love affair with. In fact, from issues 92 to 107 in the early 70s, the series was actually retitled Daredevil and the Black Widow. By the late 1970s, sales of Daredevil had severely declined and the series was on the verge of being canceled. However, a backup penciler by the name of Frank Miller was promoted to writer of the series. Miller brought in elements of hard-boiled crime fiction and film noir to the series and introduced fan-favorite characters such as Elektra and the Punisher. Miller also elevated Bullseye and the Kingpin to Daredevil's primary rivals and set the much darker tone that would define the character going forward. Within months of Miller taking over, Daredevil had become one of the biggest selling comics of the time, and his legacy persists to this day. Daredevil has remained relevant and popular through generations of fans and critics alike. Volume 1 of Daredevil continued in the late 90s when Marvel was on the verge of bankruptcy. Issue number 380 marked the final issue of the classic comic run, but it was revived a short while later on a Marvel imprint called Marvel Knights. The first story arc was actually written by Kevin Smith, who had recently enjoyed success with his films such as Clerks and Mallrats. This was an important development because Smith was the first Hollywood director to pen a superhero comic, and it encouraged other writers from film, TV, and literature to write comics going forward. Well, who is Daredevil, you ask? Daredevil, the secret identity of Matthew Murdock, is a blind lawyer in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Son of a local boxer, battling Jack Murdock, he was involved in an accident when he was a child and was blinded by toxic chemicals. However, with the loss of his eyesight, his other senses were amplified to superhuman levels, and he developed a radar sense that allowed him to form a mental picture of his surroundings. He can feel minute temperature and pressure changes in the atmosphere, allowing him to feel the presence and movement of people nearby. His hearing is extremely acute. He can hear a person's heartbeat 20 feet away. He has superhuman balance, taste, smell, reflexes, and agility, and his strength and stamina are near the peak of human performance. So, while he was a child, Murdock was trained by a blind ninja master named Stick. Stick taught him how to control his abilities and hone his skills as a fighter. Daredevil has been described by multiple other prominent characters as one of the greatest hand-to-hand fighters in the Marvel Universe. He has repeatedly fought superpowered and master-rank fighters to a stalemate, including Black Panther, Taskmaster, Iron Fist, Captain America, Sabretooth, Winter Soldier, and even Wolverine. In 2003, there was an attempt to bring Daredevil to the big screen, with Ben Affleck playing the titular character. Unfortunately, it was terrible. I would love to blame Ben Affleck for it, and he did play a role in how bad the movie was, but I honestly don't think anyone could have saved it. Hell, it had an all-star cast as it was. Jennifer Garner as Elektra, Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, Colin Farrell as Bullseye, Joe Pantoliano as Ben Urich, and Jon Favreau as Foggy Nelson. It was just badly written. It was silly, campy, the actors hammed it up way too much. You just couldn't take it seriously. God, that suit was so awful. It was a travesty. However, Duncan's Kingpin was a high point in the movie. Other than that, it was just so bad. In any event, the movie seemed to have doomed the character to eternity in print, until finally, in 2013, after the rights of the franchise reverted to Marvel, a new Daredevil TV show entered development at Netflix. Created by Drew Goddard and led by Stephen DeKnight, the new series on Netflix dropped in April of 2015. It starred Charlie Cox as the lead character and Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin. Cox and D'Onofrio nailed the roles. The stories were darker and more grounded than the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it focused on local and smaller street crime plot lines in Hell's Kitchen. It was violent, intense, and thought-provoking. To this day, it is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and probably the absolute best superhero adaptation ever. The second season dropped in March of 2016. It introduced both the Punisher and Elektra to the series, as well as bringing in the Hand, a secret criminal organization of ninjas, as the final big bad of the season. While not quite as good as the first season, it was still an excellent show, especially the first half of the season, which focused on Frank Castle's Punisher storyline. Played by John Bernthal, the Punisher was a great contrast between the two vigilantes. Daredevil, the Catholic who languishes in guilt and self-doubt and never kills, and Frank Castle, the relentless and remorseless assassin. The second half of the season focused on Matt's ex-girlfriend, Elektra, portrayed perfectly by Elodie Yung, and their fight against the Hand. It was fun, but the Hand story relies on supernatural elements that seem out of sync with the rest of the show's grounded nature. In between seasons 2 and 3, a mini-series called The Defenders brought all of the Netflix heroes together for a continuation/conclusion of the Hand story from Daredevil 2. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist have to team up to fight this ancient organization hell-bent on taking over the world. It wasn't great. Each of the characters individually aren't that bad, but this show felt forced and inauthentic, and the tone was totally different from the other shows. Not a must-see, but the ending is important in that it sets up the beginning of Daredevil Season 3. The third and final season of Daredevil aired in October of 2018. It started, unfortunately, where the Defenders left off, but quickly moved on and became arguably the best season of the show. I still think Season 1 is the best, but Season 3 is very close. Returning to its darker roots, this season actually took inspiration from the Born Again story arc from the comics, written by Frank Miller and appearing in issues 226 to 232 all the way back in 1986. One of the most celebrated story arcs in comic history. It introduced Bullseye, played by Wilson Bethel, who was perfect for the role. Because of its excellent ratings and reviews, writing for Season 4 had already begun, while the crew and cast were waiting for official announcement of its renewal. However, much to the chagrin of its fans, the show was summarily canceled in November 2018, barely a month after Season 3 released. It was such a bummer. And with that cancellation, along with the rumors that Kevin Feige didn't want any overlap between the Netflix characters and the MCU, it seemed that Daredevil was once again relegated to print for the foreseeable future. However, cracks began to appear when Charlie Cox showed up as Matt Murdock in a scene in Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. That same year, D'Onofrio reprised his role as Kingpin in the Hawkeye Disney Plus series. Don't get me started on how bad they treated him in that show. In March of 2022, it was revealed that a new Daredevil series was in development to be released on Disney Plus. Fans like myself took this announcement with a fair amount of skepticism, a large grain of salt, since nearly all of the Disney Plus shows were pretty awful. Rumors were that the new series would have no continuity with the Netflix series, with only Cox and D'Onofrio returning, and that the stories would be much lighter and Disney-fied, if that's a word. These rumors seemed confirmed when Daredevil made a cringy appearance in She-Hulk, and both Daredevil and Kingpin made embarrassing appearances in Echo. However, lucky for us, things changed. So in September of 2023, it was revealed that after reviewing the first several episodes, Kevin Feige thought the show was unwatchable. So there was a huge creative overhaul. When the show arrives on Disney Plus in March, it will have been nearly 7 years since its parent series, Netflix's Daredevil, was canceled in November 2018. It will also have been 3 years since Marvel announced Daredevil Born Again. a period of time that was extended by the studio's decision in September of 2023 to part ways with the original Born Again head writers Matt Corman and Chris Ord, and hired the Punisher writer Dario Scardapane to creatively overhaul it. He also brought in Loki Season 2 directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. According to Charlie Cox, the original iteration of Born Again suffered from an identity crisis. It was a little bit confusing, said Cox, about the series' initially unclear connections to its Netflix predecessor. It was too, quote, is it the show or is it not the show? So there was a decision to make. They didn't know if they wanted to use the Netflix series backstory at all. Said that Marvel was initially hesitant to bog Daredevil Born Again down with too much backstory tied to the original Netflix series. However, rather than run away from the show's history, Marvel chose to lean into it. That decision resulted in not only the project's many behind-the-scenes changes, but also the return of the other original Daredevil stars like Deborah Ann Woll, who plays Karen Page, Eldon Henson, who plays Foggy Nelson, Eilert Zurer, who plays, I think that's how you say her name, Eilert Zurer, who plays the Kingpin's wife, Vanessa, and Wilson Bethel, who plays Bullseye. So the first trailer for the series was dropped in December 2024, and I gotta say, it looks good. The Kingpin returns as a major antagonist, but there's also the introduction of the serial killer Muse, who was first seen in the 2015 Charles Soule comic run. The new showrunner, Dario Scardapane, has said that the new show will pay homage to the Netflix series and that the events of the Netflix series are part of the histories of the characters. However, he did warn that the new show is going to be its own thing. He says there's more fun in the moments with these characters and a lot less navel-gazing than before. So yeah, he goes on to say that, the earlier show at its best was fantastic. At its worst, it was two characters in a room talking about what a hero is. I felt that had been done. I'm not taking swipes. I just didn't want to hear characters grousing about their lot in life. I wanted to see them doing things. So again, this betrays a misunderstanding of the characters and a misunderstanding of the show. So he does say that he feels that the Netflix's Daredevil was much more noir, and that this show, Born Again, is more a New York crime story. It has elements of The Sopranos and King of New York. There's a feeling for those classic 90s crime tales. It has a pace and a scope that, for a lot of reasons, Netflix wasn't able to do. They were very dark cinematically, not necessarily story-wise, although there were some dark elements. We're much darker. So again, there seems to be two different interpretations of what this show, what to expect in this show. So I was cautiously optimistic after I saw the first trailer, but after cast and crew's statements about creative changes, I'm a lot more cautious than optimistic at this point. But I'll reserve judgment until I see the show. And I'm not hard to please. I don't need this show to be as good or better than the original. I don't need it to be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. I will honestly be satisfied and will sing Marvel's praises if they pull off a 7 out of 10, even a 6.5. Anyhow, Daredevil Born Again Season 1 premieres on March 4th on Disney+, with the first 2 episodes dropping on that date. I will likely do a review and or breakdown sometime in the next few days, so check back if you want to see what I have to say. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more content, and drop your comments below if you have anything to add, change, or tell me I'm wrong about. It's okay, I can take it. Bye for now, and I hope to see you next time here in the Culture Wars.